bounce around to some top stories because I think so many millions of Americans were fascinated by a phenomenon last night, that being the Northern Lights. And this is just a post right now from our Fox 9 team saying the Northern Lights were shining across Minnesota. The display followed a G2 moderate geomagnetic storm watch issued by the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Let's quickly joined right now by Sean Dahl with NOAA, the Space Weather Prediction Center. You're a forecaster. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your patience. Obviously, what we saw last night was incredible. It was beautiful. And so many people did get a glimpse at it, something that they rarely, if ever, do. What happened last night?
Andy, thanks for having us on here. Yeah, we had a geomagnetic storm, a very large magnetic disturbance, and these are important because they can affect many of the technologies that so many of us rely upon, from the electric power grid to communications to GPS and more. A space launch was even scrubbed today because of this space weather storm that we experienced yesterday. The space launch was scrubbed today, and now they're trying to figure out whether they'll have it again tomorrow. So what happened is we had the arrival of what's called a coronal mass ejection, a blast of solar material in the form of charged particles and magnetic fields, and they arrived here at Earth yesterday evening, and they arrived in a way that made things very favorable to spin up the aurora like the pictures you're sharing right now, and that many of us got a chance to see. And we think that potential exists yet again tonight, although maybe not as strong as last night, but it is there.
Yeah, and we're talking about it, the aurora borealis, the Northern Lights. Usually in Canada, some of the northern states like Minnesota, they're familiar with it, Montana. But people in Texas and Colorado, Arizona, even way down in Florida got a glimpse. How rare is that for some of the southern states to see the Northern Lights?
Yeah, it's very rare, Andy. We don't have these events very often. This is only the fourth time in this 11-year solar cycle that we're currently in that we've issued this G4 or greater storm watch. That's how rare they are. Also, there's so many things that need to line up, which makes this even more extraordinarily difficult for something like that to happen. It's how strong is the magnetic energy in these CMEs as they envelop Earth? What is the direction of that magnetic field? Is it the same as Earth? We're not going to see a big response. If it's opposite Earth, like last night, we're going to see a big response. And these are a lot of the unknowns that we just don't realize until they reach a spacecraft only 1 million miles from Earth. And that's where we can finally see what the structure of these CMEs actually is.
That is so very fascinating. And some of these images, you can see like the hues of orange, there's pinks, there's blues. Is there something to that? Is there a difference? And why do they make the colors that they do?
Yeah, it all has to do with how these charged particles are interacting with our molecules in the outer layers of our atmosphere. And all that exchange of energy eventually releases light. And that light is what we see as these different colors. And it just depends on what kind of molecule it's interacting with and how high up in the atmosphere it is. And so a lot of people catch that red with their digital technologies like their cell phones that are so good at doing this today, even though they may not be seeing it. But yes, that is what happens when these events get to this level, and it's just a fantastic thing to be able to see.
Yeah, it's so very cool. We're down in Arizona, so we don't get a really glimpse at it. But you mentioned that space flight that was washed out, that was pushed off from Blue Origin, as opposed saying the New Glenn ready to launch, however, due to the highly elevated solar activity, its potential effects on the Escapade spacecraft. The NASA is postponing its launch until space weather conditions improve. And I don't think a lot of people, you do, think about space weather all the time. But I don't want to necessarily get into the fact that it was washed. But obviously, what kind of conditions, how much are they monitoring the space weather and optimal conditions? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, they have to monitor and pay attention because some of these spacecraft launch platforms or the thing that they're launching have some vulnerabilities. We don't necessarily know what those are, but they do. So they contact us and they reach out for our forecast information and our warnings and alerts to find out what's actually going on. And in this case, they were doing that yesterday, and they eventually made the decision to wait it out. So now they're trying to determine whether they can launch it tomorrow, I do believe. And we've already been engaged in some conversations about that. You know, and they're just one of the entities that gets impacted by this. The electric power grid, we talk to them. Air traffic control, we talk to them. FEMA. Right. Even the White House Situation Room has been getting information about this storm.
That is so very fascinating. And you mentioned this was kind of magnetic, and we're still learning so much about it. But in terms of you see what's happening with the rockets, they're concerned about it. Is there any potential concern for people, for humans with this?
No physical harm is going to come to anybody because we have a protective atmosphere and our magnetic barrier that shield us. So it's really those technologies that rely upon. The one sector I can think of people that might actually be impacted by these types of storms that we're currently experiencing are people that need precision GPS, like farmers or others, search and rescue folks, because they can be off by quite a bit more than one would normally anticipate. And that's what we do here, is focus on those types of effects.
All right, very good. I just want to get your take on that. And just my last question, Sean, before I let you go, you mentioned the fact that we could have another iteration of it, and we're still kind of trying to figure things out. Can you tell us potentially what people could expect? When should we even know that we're kind of giving up people a forecast of the next northern lights in the next couple of days?
Yeah, well, we did have the third of 3 CMEs arrive a short bit ago. It's on some of the monitors there on display here behind me in our solar wind spacecraft that we use 1 million miles from Earth. We're trying to figure out right now what stage of that CME that's passing over Earth right now, this final one. And we need that magnetic field to be intense. It is, but we need to also be favorable. And right now it's not. It's the same as Earth. So if it turns south, we'll connect and drive up those forces. That's why we've extended that watch into the 13th of November, and the potential's there. But just watch for our warnings and alerts to see for yourself when things are escalating.
Yeah, watch for those alerts. And if you're able to get outdoors, even if just your backyard, take it in, because it is such a spectacular sight. Sean, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It's so fascinating to talk about this phenomenon. Thanks again.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks so much. All right, great conversation as always, as so many people got out. We were sharing so many photos earlier on today of people there around the country showcasing what they were able to see, because sometimes it's a bucket list for so many people. Fox 9 team in Minnesota showcasing this. It will potentially continue into tomorrow, into Thursday on the 13th of November. All right, I'm Andy Mack here on LiveNOW from Fox. We just wanted to dive into that because that was just so very cool, so very incredible to see for so many people in a variety of states, not just Montana, Minnesota, some of the northern states that are used to this, but even stretching down into Colorado, Texas, Florida, Georgia, all of these states getting a glimpse into it. All right, we're still monitoring this. As you can see, just a few votes left out on the House floor for this vote on a rule. It's right now just 214 to 213, but the Republicans obviously have a slim margin in this case. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break. We'll take you back out to Washington, D.C. on LiveNOW.